Welcome to Airlogic's product highlight video of our normally closed check valves. So normally closed check valves are a subset of our general check valve category, and importantly, a normally closed check valve is the type that has a spring inside it. It's got a preload force on there. It's a very critical aspect to know about your check valves, if it's a freely floating check valve or if there's a spring force in there. Even when you look at the pneumatic or a hydraulic symbol of a check valve, if there's a spring in there, you know it's a normally closed check valve. So we offer a wide range of these type of products, and normally closed check valves definitely have their own nuances and specialties when you get into the characteristics of the check valve. So I want to go over some of those today. So as the name suggests, a normally closed check valve, when there's no pressure applied, there's no force applied to it, it's going to always remain closed. And it'll stay there until you apply enough pressure to crack the check valve open. That's what we call the cracking pressure. That's when it just barely starts to open just a little bit. That's important because as you increase that cracking pressure, as it's harder to open that valve, that's going to affect a couple things. One, it's going to make it seal better when it's closed. That's just because there's more force keeping that check valve closed. So if you have a low pressure system and you want the best seal possible going backwards, you use a high cracking force check valve because that's going to provide the force you need to keep a good seal on there. On the other side, when you're trying to flow through the check valve, as you increase that cracking pressure, it's actually going to reduce the overall flow of the system because you got that spring trying to fight the flow going through there. As your pressure increases, finally that check valve will open, and then, like I said, then you'll finally get your flow through there, but might be a little bit reduced if you spec that cracking pressure too high. So on the low end, you get the opposite results. If you have a low cracking pressure check valve, that means the preload on the seal itself isn't very high, and so you don't need that much pressure to open the check valve. That means in the backwards direction, you're not going to have the benefit of all that additional force, so your sealing characteristics might not be as great, but you're going to get really free-flowing fluid going the flow direction. So, like I said, there's a lot of trade-offs when it comes to picking a cracking pressure, and it really gets into a lot of like nuances of what you can do with the check valve there. Some people will use these as relief valves, actually, where you'll never have flow going the opposite direction, but they're just using that spring force to only release pressure at a certain range or over a certain range. So, like I said, check valves, especially the normally closed type, they really get into some nuances. When you're picking different cracking pressures, the seals you pick inside, whether you're talking like a silicone, an EPDM, a Viton, a Buna, all those will have small changes as well to the characteristics of the check valve, and also the size and the packaging. So here we got a couple different options. We have our 404 body. I'm just going to pick that up and show that to the camera here. So this has 1032 threads on both sides. We can add fittings, or you can add your own fittings there if you want to just connect something with a 1032 fitting there. We have that in a range of different cracking pressures. We also have this 405 check valve, and this is a ball and spring. So where the 404 is more of a flat diaphragm or a flat disc that's moving back and forth, this 405 is a ball and spring design. Each one, they're going to act a little bit differently and have a little bit different best use cases, but that's kind of the overall. Nice thing with the 405 is you get swivel connections. So here we have just a straight through design. The parts actually swivel here, but we can also put a T or an elbow on these too. So the world of check valves is pretty big. Like I said, these are just two examples of what we make here. We customize a lot of check valves for people for different designs, different industries, different compliances, different pressure ratings. So if you don't see what you want in our catalog, please reach out and let us know. We'd love to talk about your application. Thanks.